Hey, this is Heidi Dawson. If you love all things health and wellness and style of any kind, hang out here with me each week. I'm obsessed with never-ending improvement, and it's all in an effort to help each one of us live a wildly successful lifestyle. Subscribe today so you don't miss a thing.
Hi, guys. Welcome to episode 632 of the Wildly Successful Lifestyle Podcast. I'm so happy to be hanging with you guys. Thanks for being here. And also, thank you for sharing and giving me a 5-star review if you're loving the episodes. I know you have to go out of your way to do that, and that isn't lost on me. So thank you so much from the bottom of my heart. All right, as you probably know, if you've been listening to the podcast for a while, I like running little experiments on myself to see what actually makes me feel better, or sleep better, or think better, all the things. And that's probably why I'm so obsessed with my Whoop strap. Once you start tracking one part of your life, you get really curious about the other parts. You start noticing things that you've never noticed before. Well, while we were on vacation this last time, I decided to run a new experiment on myself. So for 3 full days, I stayed completely off my phone, no social media at all. And then on the 4th day, I gave myself 15 minutes on X, and I repeated that cycle for the rest of the 2-week trip. So 3 days completely off, and then on the 4th day, I would allow 15 minutes. It was such a simple little thing, but it really changed everything for me. Like when you take the phone out of the equation, the world gets loud in the best possible way. Like normally the second I feel even a tiny bit bored while I'm waiting in line or sitting on the ferry or riding in a car, I would reach for my phone without even thinking. But this time I didn't allow myself to do that. I noticed I wanted to, but I didn't. So instead, I started people watching. Like on the ferry, I actually looked around and was watching all the islands as we were going by and the boats going by. And I would catch myself smiling because I would remember, oh, we anchored right there a couple years ago. Or, oh, we had dinner on that island and they had the cutest shop where I got the most beautiful dress. I definitely want to go back there for sure. Memories that I would have completely missed if I'd been scrolling on my phone, which I probably would have in the past. And I got really curious too about the other passengers. Like on the ferry, I watched, there were workers and there were people that were all together. You could tell they were excited to be on the trip, on vacation. And also just noticed the water and the way the sun hit the water and how it changed the color of it it went to a different blue, almost a darker blue. I also noticed I noticed how smart and interesting my own husband is. And I'm being completely serious about that. When you're not half listening while you're doom scrolling, the person sitting right next to you gets so much more interesting. Now, we had a lot of idle time on this trip, 2 whole weeks of it. And that idle time, it felt different. It felt full. It felt richer. The other thing that surprised me was how quickly the pull of the news on X just sort of lost its grip on me. X is basically the only social media I use anymore besides Pinterest. So I was a little nervous. I was like, I'm going to miss all the things. I'm going to, miss important things on X. But after a few days, the headlines started to just feel like background noise that I didn't need at all. The dopamine hit it just wasn't the same. It wasn't there. I started journaling a lot about it, and I journaled the exact moments that I felt the urge to open my phone. And it was really interesting. Sometimes it was boredom. Sometimes it was maybe we were having a political discussion. One time, get this, I saw the word democracy in a random ad on a billboard, and my brain immediately went, I need to pick up my phone and check X. You see how well my brain has been trained by social media? And what I kept coming back to in my journal was this: my brain rules my world when I'm not actively being conscious of it. It's so easy to slip into autopilot. And when I'm on autopilot, I become kind of uninteresting to myself and probably to everyone around me. I'm just sort of reacting instead of choosing, or half listening because I'm half on my phone and half paying attention. This experiment reminded me that the real world is still happening while we're staring at those little rectangles. The islands are there and they're so beautiful. The people are still fascinating. And yes, my husband is still the smartest, most handsome person in the room. And my own thoughts, they're actually worth listening to. I noticed all of that. And then when we got home from vacation, for a couple days, I allowed myself just to get back on X whenever I wanted to. And I felt myself falling right back into all the same traps. And that's why I love meditation, is because it helped me notice that. And I know I mentioned meditation and I tell you how good it is. It's been life-changing for me, and I encourage everyone to do it. But I actually love the way that it subtly exposes me to myself. So what happened was, I was in my sit. That's what Henry from the Way app, that's my meditation app that I use. He calls the meditation practice a sit, which I kind of like. Anyway, this last week we were in a meditation where we were noticing and labeling any thoughts that come up. And all that's very helpful and fine. But it was probably 6 o'clock in the morning when I was meditating, and I noticed amongst the other thoughts I was having, one of the thoughts was a worry about Nancy Guthrie, the missing 84-year-old woman, Savannah Guthrie's mother. She's been missing. And so my thought was on that at 6 a.m. And then also I had a quick little thought about Blake Lively and Justin Baldoni, that trial that's been all over my X feed. You see, those thoughts were fleeting and they were subtle, but that's where my head was at 6 a.m. in the morning. Why? They were on things that either don't matter at all in my world or things that worry me, but I can do nothing to change. I started realizing how much of my subtle, unconscious thoughts were simply regurgitating things I saw on X. And I wondered, how much am I willing to hand over to my phone? How much of my success has been lost to my phone? And I'm not saying everyone needs to do a 2-week phone fast, but maybe just notice. Notice how often your hand reaches for the phone when there's a quiet moment. And notice what you see when you don't feel that quiet moment with your phone. Notice who you become when you're not on autopilot. Notice what your mind is actually thinking about when you finally sit still. Now, I came home from this vacation feeling clearer, lighter, and honestly more in love with my actual life. And that feels like the best experiment outcome I could ask for. For me, it was a really valuable, eye-opening experiment, and I wonder if you might feel the same way. So my challenge to you this week is, maybe for one day, give yourself a break completely from all social media. See what you notice, or maybe who you notice. It may just be noticing yourself experiencing real life and just how interesting you really are, or how interesting that person beside you really is when they don't have to compete with the fantasies. Share this with 2 people who are truly interesting to you. I love you guys. I'll talk to you in a few days.
Don't forget to subscribe and share with your friends, because we're just going to keep going bigger and better places together, and I love that about us. Talk to you in a few days.